We're not a religious art museum. It's about science, it's about the humanities, it's about philosophy.
This isn't just for the educated elite.
Everything here is free. What a service to the community.
How do we want to grow the museum?
We're nearing about 31,000 objects in the collection, and those numbers are off the charts.
It's an otherworldly experience.
Arts and the Catholic Church have been like this. Notre Dame has had a museum since 1875, but to speak from the past into the future.
A museum needs to appeal to all, but you need focus.
The root of it is Catholicism. You're celebrating the soul. If you have a good tomorrow, it probably means you've had a good today.
We have lost the contemplative side to our lives.
A work of art is not just a work of art. Equipment is going to break and go dated. The artwork doesn't.
From the campus of Our Lady's University, this is For Good, Stories from Notre Dame, a behind-the-scenes glimpse into life under the Golden Dome and the powerful stories that drive Notre Dame to become a force for good in the world.
Hello and welcome to For Good, Stories from Notre Dame. Today we are coming to you from the magnificent Raclin Murphy Museum of Art. This brand new facility opened its doors to the public on December 1st, 2023, and it represents the cornerstone of the university's emerging arts gateway. As the successor to the former Snipe Museum of Art, the Raclin Murphy Museum of Art at Notre Dame continues the university's long legacy of commitment to the arts. This state-of-the-art museum became a reality thanks to a lead gift from the late Ernestine Raclin, along with her daughter and son-in-law, Carmi and Chris Murphy. I'm joined by the Director and Curator of the Raclin Murphy Museum, Joe Becherer. Joe is a scholar of modern and contemporary sculpture, has authored numerous books, catalogs, and articles, and curated major exhibitions. Through his leadership and vision and the dedicated work of the entire museum staff, the Raclin Murphy Museum of Art is off to an incredible start. Thanks so much for joining us, Joe. Great to be with you. In my humble estimation, you're one of the great hires in the last couple decades of the university. Everybody loves working with you. Your energy, your vision, your passion, and your incredible expertise in this area is a real gift to Notre Dame.
Very honored.
We've been open for about 5 months now. How has the museum been received?
Well, I think that I would be very humble in saying that it has far exceeded our expectations. You know, the opening events were extraordinary. You know, we had over 5,000 people in 3 days, which was an indicator of what's to come. And every day that you're here, Tuesday through Sunday, there are hundreds, sometimes thousands of people in the building. And it's, of course, the Notre Dame community, especially the students, but there are lots of K-12 students that are coming in. There's a real pent-up demand there, people from the community, and visitors from far and wide. So I think that the museum is doing part of what it's supposed to be doing, and we wish it a long, long life of doing just that.
It is truly extraordinary. I have heard feedback from so many visitors, longtime residents, students and faculty. And even Carmen and I on a late Sunday morning after Mass have come here and just kind of walked through just very peacefully without much going on, just to take in the beautiful works of art, so much of what is new as well as much of what is restored.
I think it's an elegant surprise.
It is, and people don't expect this in South Bend, Indiana.
Correct.
So tell us in the kind of pantheon of university museums.
Sure.
What would you say makes the Raclin Murphy Museum of Art at Notre Dame distinct?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that give us guidance and direction, and one of them is our history. You know, University of Notre Dame has had a museum since 1875. In the upper stories of the main building, there were 2 floors that were given over to a museum. So it gives you some indication that from the beginning, there was this almost European notion about what Notre Dame could be. And obviously, as a Catholic institution, the way that the arts could be involved was at the forefront. So that's 1875.
Is that one of the earliest
it's
university
the 5th or 6th oldest university art museum in the country. There are over 400 university art museums and galleries. We're one of the oldest. We're also one of the largest. We're nearing about 31,000 objects in the collection.
Wow.
So there's a lot of history here. But I think that in the recent past, anyway, we've been something of a candle under a bushel. This new museum, this new location, the way in which the collection's been presented has been an opportunity to kick that bushel basket off and to shine.
That's fantastic. So do they rank university museums? And if so, where do we stack up? And
Sure.
what is your goal or vision for the museum?
Well, one of the things that I learned after getting here is that, Notre Dame is very aware of rankings
That's
and
right.
things like that, largely coming out of athletics. There is a kind of system out there, but it's really hard to do.
Right.
Because there are many elements that are subjective. There are fewer elements that are objective.
Right.
So I would say that if you really study it, we rank, 14 or 15, which is great.
Right.
However, I think that we're poised to move very quickly up the ranks. Our goal, and by our goal, I mean the staff, but also
Right.
the advisory committee, has really been to look at the top 5 and to find our way to that top 5. And that top 5 would be Princeton, Harvard, Yale, RISD, institutions that have been collecting, some just a little bit longer than us,
Right.
but they've been doing it consistently. And we've been doing it sporadically. And I
Right.
hope that this museum gives us the opportunity just to keep that trajectory going.
So how do you get there? So let's say that
Yeah.
you want to really strengthen. Is it about strengthening the collection?
Yeah.
What are the ways that you get there?
Well, regardless of what the museum is, whether
Right.
it's a municipal museum or a university museum or a city museum, the strength always comes back to the permanent collection.
Right.
When you come in the morning, it's the permanent collection that greets you.
Right.
When you leave at night, it's the permanent collection that says goodbye to you.
Right.
It's the thing that provides legacy. So, making sure that our permanent collection is always strong and growing is very significant. The other part of it is, what do we do in terms of exhibitions? And how do we keep things fresh? How do we rotate things?
Right.
We are just opening up our temporary galleries. We've got a whole system for that going in. It really gives strength and vitality to the program, and it factors significantly in terms of what we think about in terms of research.
Right.
One of the goals in the strategic plan for the university is around research.
Right.
And we do research in a number of ways.
Right.
But also we have to think about the general public. What is that second grader interested in?
Right.
What is this group from Fort Wayne, Indiana interested in? What is this group that happens to be driving by from Cleveland interested in?
Right.
So, we have an interesting mission to maintain authenticity to the permanent collection, to give dynamism to the exhibition and the research that we do, but also, how do we reach and inform as broad and diverse an audience as possible? It can't be just about one.
One of the things about opening this new museum was that you commissioned like 8 major works of art.
Sure.
That many are displayed right in the main opening gallery when you enter the Raclin Murphy Museum of Art. Can you tell us about some of these new commissions, their significance, and why it takes people's breath away when they walk into the building?
Well, I think that one thing, if I were to just take one little step back, I go back to when I was interviewed for this position. And, I met with a group of students, and I met with community members, and I met with faculty, and I met, of course, with the staff.
Right.
And uniformly, each one of those groups said, we want to engage more and more with modern and contemporary art.
Yes.
It is the vocabulary, it's the language of the globe,
Right.
Today. It's not English, it's not French,
Right.
it's certainly not Latin anymore, much to the chagrin of some. But the reality is it's the arts.
Right.
And we also knew when we talked to faculty and the students, they love to get outside of a traditional classroom space.
Right.
They want to engage in a meaningful project, and they're very visually aware.
Right.
I mean, anybody that's under 40 today is very visually aware. So what do you do when you have a very classical design for the architecture? When you have something that's storied and historical, you have to blend it with what's contemporary.
Right.
And so our motto, in a sense, became traditional and innovative, classical but contemporary.
Right.
So that's a long introduction to your very good question. But, we started working with world-renowned artists, textbook examples, each and every one, that we felt could make a contribution to extending the conversation about what art is.
Right.
So whether it's Jaume Plensa from Barcelona, whose piece greets you at the entrance, or Jenny Holzer, the first American woman to represent the United States at the Venice Biennale, and who's soon to have a major exhibition in New York. Maya Lin, who's in the lobby, who designed the Vietnam War Memorial. Kiki Smith, who created the floor, which is technically our largest work of art.
Right.
Really solid examples.
Meretu, Julie?
Julie Meretu, that's such an important gift to us.
Yeah.
And, Julie is hands down the most important painter in America right now.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to have her here at the entrance is fantastic. Then we have smaller things that are happening. Right. We commissioned Jamie Okuma, a very renowned indigenous North American artist, to create a piece for the North American galleries. We've commissioned other artists to work in other spaces, so that when you come into, and we've just acquired things too.
Right.
So you go to the African galleries and you can begin in ancient Egypt, but you end up with Yinka Shonibari. So I think we have an obligation and a unique opportunity to not just talk about the past, but to speak from the past and with the past into the future.
In some ways, would you say that our students are demanding more contemporary and modern art?
Absolutely.
And it's through those artworks that they identify and they dream and think more. So we have different constituencies, the alumni, the students, different generations. A museum needs to appeal to all on the one hand, but at the same time, you need focus.
We do need focus, and we have 6 areas that we really are focused on as we move into the future. And I think the most important thing is to acknowledge that although we have a lot of examples of religious art, we're not a religious art museum.
Right.
But we are informed by the greater spirit and character of what it means to be a Catholic, the major Catholic university.
Right.
So when we went into this process of planning for the new museum, we couldn't help but to hear, for example, St. Augustine, who embraced the knowledge and the wisdom that comes from spiritual enlightenment in the visual arts.
Right.
And of course, he was speaking about icons and he was speaking about religious objects.
Right.
But, you could say a similar thing about a ceramic object that helps people to talk about world cultures, to help people talk about societies where things were not always equal.
Right.
Or you can use the same kind of thing when you're talking about a contemporary piece that gives you the opportunity to think about New York in the 1950s and the role of men and women and so on and so forth. So, it's really an extraordinary opportunity to take who and what we are and unique as a Catholic institution, and then move it out and around the globe.
When other museums, especially university museums, look at the Notre Dame Museum, what are the collections, the permanent collections that they'll look at and say, wow, these are major areas of strength?
Sure. So I would say that among the many areas of strength for us would be the European collection, especially things that illuminate the Catholic tradition.
Right.
I'd say that for sure our collection of Mesoamerican art is, one of the finest in the nation for any museum. I think that people would look at our collections as they sort of further the notion of who we are and where we are. So the sculpture park, the sculpture collection, the George Rickey gift, those kind of things. Those are the things that make us unique. We can't be all things to all people, but we can certainly offer a pretty full table of opportunity.
So when you think about growing, those are some areas of strength, and of course you'll welcome additions to those very strong collections. But when you think about areas, you mentioned contemporary and modern, are there ways to kind of give greater clarity to our viewers? How do we want to grow the museum? So,
a museum grows in a number of different ways. A museum grows traditionally through donations. So people have objects in their collection, or people have things that they want to contribute to that help to grow the collection. That's probably the most straightforward way. You know, one of the best ways for the long-term viability of a museum to grow is if people set up some kind of foundation so that they can give those monies on an annual basis, and we can make those selections. And we have a few, not many, but we have a few of those funds that allow us to grow in a very significant way.
Right. So acquisition funds that could be endowed, et cetera. Tell us about Mary, Queen of Families Chapel. It is absolutely breathtaking, yet it is also an active place of worship.
Sure.
Are there any other museums in the country that you know of that have an active chapel right in the heart of it? And
No.
Tell us a little bit about Mimo Palladino and this amazing chapel.
Well, I have this beautiful letter in a file back at my office from Joyce Hank. You know, Hank family, so wonderful and so significant to the university. And she said that her hope for the museum was to be something that only Notre Dame could do and wouldn't feel right anyplace else, but feels perfect at the University of Notre Dame. And certainly having an active chapel is the manifestation of that dream, that vision. And I think about her all the time. And, you know, you go to a lot of museums. You know, you go to the Metropolitan, you go to the Louvre, and so on and so forth. You go to, you know, a regional museum, and you're going to see examples of religious art. But in a museum context, they're sort of neutered. That's not why they were there, you know? They weren't to be a display object. They were part of a faith tradition. Likewise, you go to major museums, and you've got chapels that are reconstructed, but they're more props than anything else. So the idea became really twofold. How do we help people understand that many of the objects, especially the European objects that they see in our Renaissance and Baroque galleries, actually had another life? They were a part of a faith tradition. So how do you illuminate that? That's one part of it. The second part of it is there are oftentimes assumptions made that nobody produces this kind of artwork anymore. So that whole concept of past and present that I talked about a few minutes ago, we had this unique opportunity to do a chapel, bring some objects from the permanent collection. There's one from about 1250, there's one from about 1400, the altarpiece is from about 1500, and to work with Mimo Palladino, who's a contemporary Italian artist, probably one of the most important Italian artists of our lifetime, to create the space so that past and present, so that the sacred comes to life, it animates in a new way. And I think it's been successful. I think it's a surprise.
It is.
I think that the artist is thrilled. I think that the people that were scratching their head a little bit, shall we say, about what are you doing? You're going to have a chapel and so on and so forth. I think they get it when they come here. And it all ultimately goes back to what I was saying about St. Augustine. You know, how can a work of art possibly elevate the soul? How can it begin to connect us with the divine? And that can happen in a Christian sense. It can happen in lots of other global senses as well.
So, I mean, I think all museums call its visitors to kind of a deeper level of reflection, contemplation, is you quiet down from the busyness of society. But what is amazing when you come into the Raclin Murphy Museum of Art is you see people not only quietly participating in a work of art, but they'll stop and say a prayer. They'll kneel, and the spiritual comes out in this chapel in ways that make it distinct from any other museum experience. So it's people, I'm telling you, you come visit the Raclin Murphy Museum of Art, you're going to be absolutely blown away. We need you to visit when you come back to campus this spring and especially this fall. It's an otherworldly experience. So you have launched, this isn't only the opening now, 5 months of this new museum. But 2025, next year, will be the 150th anniversary
of there being an art museum at Notre Dame.
Exactly. So how are you celebrating that 150th anniversary?
So obviously in preparation for this museum, we all became very familiar with what the collections are and aren't.
Yep.
And so this, in combination with the fact that there's this major anniversary on the horizon, how can we grow strategically the collection? You know, we can't be all things to all people.
Right.
We can't take all the things that people might want to give us. And trust me, my mailbox gets pretty full.
Yeah.
But, you know, how are there ways to reach and to bring people in to encourage the collection? And so we've started very quietly in this campaign, but you know, we have some deficits. You know, it's not such a good thing that, you know, the University of Notre Dame doesn't have a major Andy Warhol or major pop art painting. You know, that's something that needs to happen.
Right.
You know, there are a whole series of other artists that we'd love to have in the collection.
Monet.
You know, all of those things. And you asked me earlier about the rankings. Well, there's nothing that is going to raise you in the rankings like a couple of major acquisitions. I'll give you a for instance. You know, an institution that I think we both admire is Stanford. You know, a generation ago, that museum was very, very far down on the list. Two things happened. One, there was a collector that came up with a collection of Rodin and boom, gave all these works by Rodin. It just burst through the seams what that museum could be. Then there was another collector of modern contemporary art. They actually had to build a wing next door to the traditional museum. So you just never know what a gift or two or a group can do to raise and to elevate. And I don't go into this thinking competitively, like we're number one. I go into it thinking, how can we make the experience better? You know, what's the best for everybody that's here? And one of the analogies that I like to use is, you know, if this was the sciences, we would make sure that the Notre Dame family had the best possible microscopes and scientific equipment possible. If this was athletics, we'd want to have the best equipment possible. Well, how's that different than we want to have the best art? It's the same.
That's right.
But there's one big difference. The microscope's going to break and go dated. The athletic equipment is going to break and go dated. The artwork doesn't. So there is a level of history. There's a longevity that exists with works of art. You know, you and I are here now, and it's an exciting time. But I have to think about what's going to happen in 2050 and hope and pray for 2075 and, you know, so on and so on and so on. And a lot of that will happen, I think, through some of the gifts that we get as a part of this campaign.
So you've launched a campaign called 150 for 150. 150, not just works of art, but gifts. A gift could be a collection of 29 paintings that would count as one. Where are you in that toward that 150?
So I think that at last look, we were at about 40 gifts. And but that's about 300 objects. Some really significant things have been happening. Some people that didn't know about us. Some people that needed to be reminded about us.
Well, now the visibility and this new, the physical structure and the layout of this museum is going to awaken people to possibilities, I think, of gifting art that never would have in the previous iteration. So tell it, what are some of those objects of those first 40 that you've gotten that just kind of really jump?
A couple of things that really surprised me were John Singer Sargent, one of the great American painters of the late 19th, early 20th century, you know, did all these gorgeous society paintings, was very conversant with art of the past. Well, you know, through an advisory council member and a friendship that he had, we were just recently given a full-length Sargent painting. I mean, it's unbelievable. Through the family of one of our deceased trustees, we were given a huge photograph by Andreas Gursky. I mean, the complete other side of the spectrum, other than scale, you know, a very contemporary photograph, which is just mind-boggling. Nothing we could do. We could never have done on our own. But yet, you know, through the generosity of this wonderful family, boom, it happened. And then sort of out of the clear blue sky, something that happened at the very end of the last calendar year, through a Notre Dame alum who knew a friend of a friend of a friend. It's one of those things. A huge collection of contemporary African and African American painting. I think there are 17 paintings that are there. And, when you think about how significant the Global South is in terms of the strategic framework, it fits.
Right.
So these kind of things have been happening, and not necessarily in ways that we've gone after. They've come to us. So the Sargent, sort of classic old master, Gursky, contemporary, and then this collection of African and African American artists, kind of blows your mind.
Now, I'm going to really upset you here for a second. This won't be the first or last time, but I do
That's
so
a great
is so many artists and art collectors in the world are just really attracted to you. And so we have gotten collections that really have nothing to do with Notre Dame, but they're people who have a personal relationship with you. They believe in you, your ability to display. Jim Dine giving us a huge collection of his 238 works of art, contemporary of Andy Warhol and the famous for the hearts, everything. Joe Maplenza has visited the campus twice since you have been here, and arguably one of the most acclaimed living sculptors in the world.
Correct.
And so many other gifts that are coming to Kenneth Nelson is going to be the first temporary exhibit, right? That is opening when, and tell us a little bit about that.
So we're getting a huge collection by the artist Kenneth Nelson from his widow and from his daughter. There's roughly about 40 sculptures and about 60 photographs. The interesting thing about him is that Ken was a sculptor. That's how he's known internationally, but he was also a pioneering photographer. And he was fascinated with the idea of the atom. And did a lot of he has 6 patents. And so when you think about the University of Notre Dame and the strengths that we have in terms of engineering and the sciences and how interested the arts are for so many individuals, he is sort of our poster child for what art can be. You're very kind for those comments, but
and when is the first visiting exhibition?
That's Kenneth Nelson. It just opened in March.
In March?
Yes.
Okay,
so it opened in March and it runs through July. And then in the fall, so if people come in fall for any of the football games, we have a large exhibition. Father Brown, who was an Irish Jesuit, who also was a pretty wonderful photographer. So we have 100 photographs that are coming to us for that exhibition. We're working with a woman by the name of Clarissa Toussaint, who will be the exhibition a year from now. So we're trying to get 2 or 3 years out in advance and to present as diverse a series as possible.
And you're visiting exhibition spaces, right? The temporary are much larger than...
Much larger, much more graceful, much more state-of-the-art than they were in the past.
So one thing that makes a university museum distinct, and you are so adept at managing this, is the integration of kind of teaching and research, as you mentioned before, especially with the faculty and students. Tell us about this isn't just a place for art and art history students, but you partner in very creative and unconventional ways with other departments. Can you give us some examples?
Well, there's the physical, there's the actual measurable spaces, and then there's the programmatic.
Right.
And I think that what's so important for people to know is that we work with more than 40 different departments across the university every year. We know from surveys that were done that 91% of Notre Dame graduates have visited the art museum for a class or for their personal reflection. I mean, those numbers are off the charts. So if you come at us and you think about us as just a traditional art museum, you're missing so much of the dynamism and energy. Yes, understanding the aesthetics of an object and the history of an object are important. But if we can partner with history or theology or anybody in the sciences, it makes it even richer. So we have some physical spaces that are here that we have set up specifically for the academy. One is the object study room. I call that the dating room. So if you are teaching something across campus and there are things that are in storage in the vaults, that are not on display, we can bring them out for that one class.
Give some examples of a class.
So if maybe you're teaching a class on the Reformation and we don't have our Durer prints out, and you want to see those because it solidifies many of the ideas that you're presenting in class, we can bring those out. You're teaching a class in the civil rights and you want to see our John Lewis photographs, we can bring those out and you can have that experience.
How
with
about
the
pre-medicine
object.
students?
Oh, well, what's great about pre-medicine is that we've kind of pioneered a class for people that are going into the medical field, which basically builds on skills of looking, because looking at an art object is the same as looking at an x-ray or a body or anything like that. But it also is a way to dialogue. It helps us to have conversations. So the object study room is really sort of the dating room.
Right.
If you want to go steady, meaning you want to engage with us for the whole semester, then you probably want to be in the teaching gallery.
Yeah.
And this is a similar premise, but it's for multiple visits.
To those younger people that are watching here, it's like talking versus dating. Those are the kind of, I don't think they use steady anymore, but but our generation gets steady. Okay, got it. Good.
So there's this opportunity for the whole semester for these things, and it's very eclectic. There's photographs, there's ancient Greek vases, there's a Roman head, there's Carol Walker prints. They're all in there. But I think it's important because the general public can wander in there too, and they're like, well, geez, this is very unusual. What's going on here? So you mentioned interesting projects. There are a lot of things that we can do. We have some wonderful colleagues in art history that use us very regularly. But I'll tell you about a very special project around a painting that well. We recently received a beautiful Cusco Madonna. And we have somebody from the art history department and two people from the chemistry department that are analyzing the painting, trying to understand the pigments and how paints were made in the Americas. We know about how things were done in Europe. We don't know as much here.
Right.
So they're in there with all this technology and they're doing teeny little samples and so on and so forth. And I can guarantee you that somebody that's in that chemistry class is going to remember this project. They're probably not going to remember what they got on their midterm exam, or maybe they don't want to, but they're going to remember, geez, when I was at the University of Notre Dame, we were with this Cusco painting, and it came to life in a whole new way. And I understood that a work of art is not just a work of art. Yes, it's about aesthetics, it's about art history, but it's about science, it's about the humanities, it's about philosophy, it's about sociology, it's about so many other things. And I think we do that well.
And I think every first year student through the Moreau seminar class has already visited the museum.
Correct.
Right? They come down. Tell us a little bit about how they're introduced and initiated to the museum.
So, we have a really dynamic education department.
You do.
And we're speaking, specifically of the academic side, but this also happens on the K-12 side. But the Moreau seminar, used to be kind of a how to succeed in college.
Right.
But it has certainly grown and become much more sophisticated in how to be. How to be in the world, and taught by people from across Notre Dame. And so they're all coming here. The classes that are led by other students. It's not by, us teacher types. They're taught by students, our gallery teachers, which is an amazing program. And they deal with all sorts of topics.
Yes.
And the topics range from things that are related to religion, to sociology, to inequities in society. We did in November and early December, even really before we were open, we did sort of as guinea pigs. We invited, I don't remember how many, about 1,000 of these students in.
Right.
They focused on a piece by Zhang Wan. And it was just mind-blowing what the experiences were.
Right.
Absolutely mind-boggling what the experiences
So
were.
one of the things I love about when you walk into the gallery is you have this neon artwork that says, I belong here.
Correct.
And
it's right there.
Yes, right. And it speaks to me because, I have probably many people walking into a museum, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not educated about the arts. I'm clueless. What am I doing here with all these great works? And I feel like that is a message right there to say, this isn't just for the educated elite, those that this is for everybody, and to heighten that appreciation. So talk about what you do with K through 12 students, which I think is unparalleled, largely.
So, we, of course, deal with the Academy. And by the Academy, we also reach out to St. Mary's and Holy Cross and
Right.
Bethel and everybody in this region. But we also do a lot with K-12 programs. We've got a second grade program in particular that we bring young people in.
Like how many students, local students, will you bring in a year?
Every
roughly?
year, depending on what the temporary exhibitions are, 11 to 12,000, 12,500 students. And they actually come from a 3-state region.
Wow.
Come down from Michigan, people come over from Illinois, they come from Indiana. So we're really a resource there. And we really felt the need during COVID.
Yeah.
That the teachers wanted to have something to do, the principals were missing this, and certainly the students were missing this.
Right.
And, for me, as a parent, as a teacher, as a museum director, one of the best things is when it's a Saturday or a weekend and a little person brings their family back.
Right.
Because they had a great experience on a tour,
Yeah.
and they wanted to share it with their siblings, with their mom, with their grandma, whoever the
Right.
situation is.
Right.
And it just goes to the very heart of how good and how important a museum can be.
I know our new provost, John McGreevy, has challenged you and the other leaders of the arts here, the performing arts right next door, the School of Architecture,
Right.
again, just
Right.
to the north of us. And then at the further north end, which is actually the south end of the stadium, the new music building.
Correct.
That is O'Neill Hall of Music. All of you working together so the sum can be greater than the individual parts.
Sure.
We're calling this an arts gateway. What can you share with us about the vision for greater kind of collaboration, integration going forward?
I keep referring to it, but I think it's so important and it's so good and it's such a strategic framework.
Yeah.
And I think that perhaps more for the performing arts and us here, the visual arts in the museum, we have this incredible opportunity to connect with the community.
Right.
Incredible. We're ambassadors and we're on the front lines, which
Right.
is beautiful.
Right.
I think the thing that's maybe unique for the art museum, unlike museums across the country, most university museums are free, which is great.
Right.
But if you look at the Art Institute or you look at the Detroit Institute of Arts or whatever, their ticket prices keep going up and up and up and up.
And everything here is free.
Everything here is free.
Right.
Everything here is free. I mean, what a service to the community that it is, that we're right here on the edge of campus. We've got a double long drop-off area. The bus stop is just kitty corner from us. There's parking. So there are things that we can do to reach into the community and welcome the community that we've just been dying to do for a
Yes.
long time. In terms of all of us coming together, I think that the root of it is Catholicism.
Yeah.
If you look back to the very first time that they painted loaves and fishes on a catacomb wall,
Yeah.
you realize that the arts, not just the visual arts, but the arts and the Catholic Church have been like this.
Right.
And so in celebrating the arts, whether it's a building or it's a play or it's a musical performance or it's a painting, you're celebrating the soul and you're celebrating the opportunity to elevate that soul, whether you're a believer or anything like that, but it gives you the opportunity to go outside of yourself, to go beyond yourself, to inspire yourself. And I think by the arts coming together and being positioned here at the entrance to campus, it says a lot about the history and the integrity of Notre Dame within the context of a Catholic university.
You've been here how long now, Joe?
5 years.
5 years. And boy, it's gone by like that. And so much of it is focused on building this and designing this and building the collections and all of that. What excites you the most going forward? And what are your dreams for the Raclin Murphy Museum of Art and the role that it can play in the larger art world?
A lot of this is a dream come true. I guess the thing that I'm always most excited about is tomorrow. I don't know what that means, but it's tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, if you have a good tomorrow, it probably means you've had a good today.
Yeah.
And I hope that what people see here, what they experience here, gives them refuge, gives them a sense of peace, gives them a way to calm down. I mean, so many of the things that we crave as a society, not just Americans, but
Right.
across the globe, a sense of calm, a sense of
Right.
unity, a sense of love. I mean, I hope they get that here.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of heights, so I'm not usually fond of being up here on the balcony.
Right.
But the magic of that space downstairs is such that my tomorrows, I think about those 20-year-olds that are coming here
Right.
from biology or chemistry or physics or art history or whatever, and what are they going to do? How's this going to affect their life? I think about those second graders that are here. I think about the moms that are with their strollers, and they're just so grateful to have something to do
Right.
in crummy Midwestern weather.
Right. Right.
I think about the sum total of that, and as a university, and in particular as a Catholic university, I come back to Joyce.
Right.
What can we do that's unique to us? And I think that the spirit and the energy and the objects here have great potential.
Mm-hmm.
The key is you have to open yourself up.
Yes. And we've moved in a society that is maybe had a better balance over time between action and contemplation, between prayer and service.
Yeah.
We have lost the contemplative side to our lives and lost that real kind of prayerful, silent space. And the liminal spaces that used to be so meaningful in my life, travel between one place to another, would be places where I would think and contemplate and
Right.
pray more. Now I have the iPhone and I'm accessible at every minute in trying to catch up. A museum, and especially a museum with a chapel, is a place where you can come and still be contemplative.
Sure.
You can take that time out. So the role that you and your team are playing here for society, I think perhaps has never been more important than
Thank
it
you.
is today. So thank you for your leadership.
Honored to be here.
Please come visit the Raclin Murphy Museum of Art. I promise you, you will be pleasantly surprised. You'll be inspired. And we're only getting started. This is only going to get better going forward. So, Joe, we always close and invite all of our viewers to join in with a prayer to Our Lady, and we're right here by the chapel that is dedicated to Our Lady, and it all begins with Mary on the Dome. So please join. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Take care, God bless, thank you, and go Irish. Good job.